recently released report shows that 39% of South Africans don't actually care if the US were to be spying on us, and this comes a year after Edward Snowden released an information bomb by releasing very sensitive information of the US's NSA into the public domain. So to speak about government intelligence and the sharing and protecting of information, I'm joined by Mukelani Dimba from the Open Democracy Advice Center and by Murray Hunter of the Right to Know campaign. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, I'm joined in studio by Julie Campbell, who's keeping a beady eye on what's happening on social media. Julie, you threw this out to our social media followers. What did you find?
We asked our social media followers, should governments be allowed to spy on their citizens? And we got some interesting responses. So from Eugene Burgeons on Facebook, so we're not allowed to know anything happening in our transparent government, but they want to know everything we do in our free society. Nice going, ANC. But just to clarify, we are speaking here about the US spying on South Africa, not really necessarily the ANC. Then Chris Nokia says, only if we can spy on Nkandla. And Desmond Ram says, if it helps to keep this country safe from any kind of terrorism, I say let them go for it. And lastly, Janine Milan, it's an invasion of privacy, but they've been doing it for a long time already. So what's new?
Now, Murray, this all assumes that the American government is actually spying on South Africa. And when we use the word spying, it does sound like a sort of very Americanized term. But how concerned should we be about governments, ours or other governments, looking in at our information?
I think we should be very concerned. I think from the revelations that we've seen from Edward Snowden in the last year, we know that the US government at times is surveilling extremely widely, and it's not just suspected terrorists, and there's a conversation there, but it's really throwing the net as widely as possible and gathering information of international phone calls, international internet traffic, and really making the haystack as wide as possible so that they can look at the needles. And it's certainly there are South African citizens who've fallen into that net. And this is looking at the US case, but I think we also need to look at the South African government and the power it has to look into networks. And as I said when I was here last time, the discussion around privacy in South Africa isn't happening. The discussion about defending privacy as a right versus letting government, state actors into our personal lives and our phone calls and our emails and whatever.
Mukelani, let's speak a little bit more about the South African government potentially accessing information of their citizens. We're not disputing the fact that there are times where it's perhaps necessary. We know that the Hawks, for instance, often catch people in child pornography rings by monitoring them. So what is the legality around this? Say the South African government suspected me of being involved in a criminal activity. Legally, how would they go about spying on me?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to recognize that the Constitution, which is the root law, does tend to balance these what seems to be contrasting values, privacy and the responsibility of the state to ensure the security of the citizens. So while the Constitution says our government has a responsibility to ensure that we are safe, the Constitution also says citizens have the right to privacy. And really broadly put, the right to privacy is about being left alone. It's about being allowed to withdraw into the privacy of wherever and with whomever. And so while we do recognize that there may be instances where government needs to interfere, it cannot be an unfettered sort of privilege or right that they have. There are concerns, there are, as Mary has said, it's really concerning when government is able to tap into what you do in the privacy of your home or your work or with whichever group that you are part of. And so we have laws that tend to try and mitigate or limit the extent to which those rights can be violated. You asked about the legality. I can think of the Criminal Procedures Act, for example, which says before such interference can be conducted on your person, there needs to be a search warrant. So if somebody is spying on me, as you put it, I would like to know where is the search warrant, because the search warrant will determine what they can do and what it is that they can search for. Anything beyond that will be regarded as unconstitutional. So there are these balances in law that need to take place. The question is, do they happen? We don't know. As the case of, you mentioned the NSA in the United States. There has been no limit at all on what the agency has been able to do in terms of spying on people, and that's a grave concern.